It is Friday, and it is time for morning cereal from Clumsy Hippo Studio. And this is the Friday edition. We're beginning a new story this week, and it is under the series of stories Charming Deviltries. This first story will be in two parts. So today we get part one. Pretty logical there. And it is called Love Knows Nothing, a Charming Thriller. And it's by me, Sheridan D. Lowe. There was a man testing the limits of noticeable speeding in a white Dodge Intrepid down Kingston Pike in Knoxville. The destination, a bar, which may seem odd at 9 p.m. unless you're an alcoholic or had a curfew. If you happened to work in the bar, it was perfectly normal. The man driving a little recklessly was me, and this was the night my life was forever changed. Working the door of a gay bar may not sound very glamorous, and there's a very good reason for that. It isn't. What it is, however, is both entertaining and informative. There are two sides to every customer. There's pre-drink/drugs and post-drink/drugs. The transformation can be fascinating and just as easily problematic. Also, too many people are under the assumption that I'm furniture and freely discuss extremely personal details in front of me. As a face enters, I can see them in detail. Underage or lying the other way. Who has money, who's looking for money. Preference of sexual position, who they've already slept with. Who drinks, who drugs, who steals, who's cheating, who are liars, who are kind. Their mood. And at 12:15 on the dot, the straight men who muscle past the line to open the door which led upstairs to my boss's office. Inevitably, a stranger would enter my foyer. Hags with their fags, out-of-towners, nervous first-timers who took longer to fully enter the bar than it took the drag queens to get ready for their show. On this night, hours after I successfully landed my car by the front door, a different type of stranger came into my world. There were two people ahead of him, which I always appreciated for allowing me to size up the newbie. Once they passed my guard post, they were out of my sight for most of the night. The man looked around my age. I'm 32, by the way. Turning 30 was a breeze. The world survived the arrival of the new millennium, and I rid myself of a foolish dalliance. Oh, and I was saving so much money by not partying anymore. In fact, in the 2 years since then, I found myself satisfied with just the company of good friends. When the stranger appeared, the chemicals in my brain began to overflow. He reminded me of someone, but I know I probably wouldn't remember who before he disappeared into the meat market. As he smiled at me, I realized he was next, and I was just studying him. If you expect an apology, think again, I told him, a bit sterner than I had intended. Laughing, which was beautiful to witness, he said, I wouldn't hear of it. In fact, I was beginning to wonder if I'd seen you somewhere before. His outfit was that timeless jeans, t-shirt, black leather jacket. Short and wavy, his hair was darker even than my dark brown. Narrowing my eyes, I used his words as an excuse to study his face again. I feel like I know you, but I also feel like this is the first time we've met. At the same time. Do you live here? Yes, he answered. Then, leaning in close, he confided, This is my first time in a gay bar, though. Well, it was a surprise, I must admit. There was an air of confidence about him, like when he walked in, he appeared as if he already knew the place. Taking a half-assed glance around me, I leaned into and said, It all begins here. I happen to wield just enough power around this place to control admittance as well as admission. Tonight, the admission for first-timers is a kiss. I couldn't believe the words came out. It wasn't like me, or rather the me right now. Neither was my taking the reins and kissing him briefly, intensely. My chest fluttered at his eyes, returning my gaze. Sitting back in my chair, I took a sip of Mountain Dew and sighed. He ran his fingers through his hair, his brows raised, but as he fidgeted with his jacket, he was smiling, and it was so uncontrollably. Then he had to go and say those damn words. Great night for firsts. Well, I processed what just happened. Could you let me know where to find Ferrari? I'm expected. My face relaxed to the point where I was only smiling with my mouth as I pointed out the door he wanted. No fool, it was clear to me some time ago that my boss was not the most honest of business owners. Information was not only gleaned from customers, but employees as well. Whenever I thought about it, I tried to avoid the word mafia, but one word that was constantly returned to me was mafia. My precise knowledge is limited, since I refuse to be heard asking a single question. With a bit of confusion on his face, the man thanked me and began to walk off before turning to ask, "Hey, what's your name, sexy?" Looking at him still, because I was unable to stop, I smiled and answered, "Cheeks." Laughing again so beautifully, he told me, "Yeah? Well, believe it or not, I'm the Commodore. Next time we can discuss how fun that's been. See you." And with that, he was blocked by the closing door. The men who passed through that door were not of the type with which I desired an involvement. That damn door. Suddenly, I had remembered having had a call and needing to leave. It was my mother's diaphoresis of the U-gag acting up again, so Jeff took my place and I hastily retreated, a swarm of conflicting feelings. Departing proved to be more frustrating because his image was already fading, and that isn't what I wanted. I needed to remember him, trying to grasp any memory of who he is. For the next 2 nights I was not scheduled, which I loved because it was convenient for the fine art of avoiding the Commodore, but each night I showered and got dressed, and I mean first wearing dressed, only to pace as I tried to remember his eyes. They were brown, I was sure. It was Armani cologne I smelled. The lips, well, they feel as if his are still with mine. Ridiculously, I touched my lips. That's when it came to me, that second night. I had to get the security tape before it was erased. The only person in the Unicorn's Horn was surprised to see me enter. The customers were long gone, and Barry, closing bartender, was about to leave. "Is everything okay?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. "Yeah," I told him as pleasantly as I could without overselling it, in fact. I decided to start simple. "I need something from the office." Looking relieved, Barry hung his backpack over one shoulder. "Oh, good. Usual crew's up there, but every time I've gone up there, they're in Ferrari's office," and with an ominous voice he added, "behind closed doors." We laughed politely and said good night, leaving me alone downstairs at least. I only needed to get into the outer office, more of a lounge really, but it was where the security monitors were. The stairs were long, steep, and narrow, but no sounds came from above. Emerging on one side of the room, to the right was a door, through which I could now hear muffled voices. Ahead was a desk with several monitors spread across its surface and equipment underneath. A small stack of tapes rested on the desk in front of the left monitor. Navigating the creaking floor, the voices in the inner office grew louder, not uncommon for Ferrari. Setting down the tapes, I was becoming concerned at the anger I could hear growing. A muffled sound rang out, not all that unlike guns with silencers on TV. It was immediately followed by a heavy thump. Without a thought of tapes, my feet tried to find the quiet steps on the floor as I attempted to return to the stairs. It was dead quiet. Then one voice, Ferrari's, was instructing, ordering, whatever. Taking one more step, I froze. Someone could be heard opening the door at the bottom of the stairs. Glancing around, the beanbags were worthless cover, and I was astounded at my own stupidity when I pictured myself crawling under the rug. Except there was the wall I never really looked at before, a curtained wall. Trying to work out the logistics of the room, it was clear no window could be on that wall, so why did the curtain flutter in the center? Moving swiftly, I ran my hand along the drapery until a part revealed itself, coincidentally in the center of the wall. Peeking through, I could see there was a short, dark hall with another door at the end, which was open, but the light was off, so nothing could be seen. Remembering the someone climbing the stairs, I struggled to regain the hold of the part. How much would be too much to open the part? How could I be sure he or she wasn't looking this way? Deciding when they either knocked on or opened the inner office door, I could look. I was determined to see if it was the Commodore. At the top of the stairs, the footsteps ended. Then I heard a creak in the floor, wondering from which direction it came. Were the creaks, in fact, getting closer? Like a shot of cloth was over my mouth and nose. The smell of chloroform was strong, and I noted a sweet taste in my mouth as the world faded to black. As I came to, the world was blurry, and I could still taste the chemical. Struggling to gain a foothold with my hands, I raised my body until I was seated on the floor. Through a systematic process of blinking and rubbing, my vision returned finally. Someone had put me in Cointreau, the drag queen's dressing room. Grunting, I rose and tried the door, not surprised that the queen's lock was being used on the outside. The bar was silent down here, but the lights were on. I wondered how long I was out. Easing into the chair, I swung my legs around only to find an obstruction. Squinting, I quickly stood when I could see the body on the floor. As long as I stood there, the body kept staying still. This could be the gunshot victim, was my conclusion. From the way it was positioned, it was impossible to tell who it is or was. Looking around the small room first, I crept over and knelt by the body, slowly reaching out for the shoulder. The body had begun to stiffen, but it pulled back enough for me to see the face, at which I gasped, letting go of Crandy, owner of rival bar FWM. WTF is happening? I couldn't help calling out, almost missing the gun sticking out of the back of her jeans. The door to the stairs opened. Try as I might, there were no sounds of footsteps on the carpet, but whispers eventually approached. There was a scraping from the lock, and the door was opened. The Commodore froze with a genuine look of shock on his face. It was so damned attractive. "Is this where you say you didn't know it was me in here?" I asked sarcastically. Then, pointing at Crandy, added, "With a dead body, no less?" A wry smile escaped me, which he dared to return. He was dressed exactly the same, except his leather jacket was zipped up. Not great, except this was a different jacket. Maybe that's why it didn't look right. One of the 1215 men appeared at the doorway, brandishing the silent defender. "What's all this jibber-jabber? Ferrari wants to see you now." His gun waved away, and the Commodore let me pass him by, where our eyes caught, as my nostrils did catch, the scent of Armani. Confused as to what precisely we were doing, they led me into Ferrari's office, which was more plain than I would have imagined. But I could see how, after the majesty of gowns and pageantry, one would like a simple space to do their gangstering. This was my first time seeing her out of drag. She looked like a teen waif. Jaden Smith appeared in my mind. Goons 1 and 2 were lined up along with the Commodore, a woman I didn't recognize but suspected of selling Mary Kay, and disappointingly Bobby, who must have come up the stairs when I was listening. Ferrari's nails were still on, and she drummed them on the metal desk. Cheeks, cheeks, cheeks. It's always the quiet ones. What possessed you to come up here? Glancing at the Commodore, whose eyes alone were turned towards me, I looked at Ferrari and admitted, "There is no way that I can, nor would I want to answer that." The Commodore was turning his eyes around the room now. Standing, my boss rested her hip on the edge of the desk. "That personal? I can respect that. The thing is, what to do about tonight?" No answers came. I wondered if she was being rhetorical or if I should answer. Then she stood and said, "You already work for me and could continue doing so. You don't usually poke your nose in where it doesn't belong, and you don't talk." Looking me in the eyes, she added, "I know you hear more than people think, but you're good." Good is not good. Good always gets dead. This time I offered a suggestion, nervously. "Some type of collateral?" "Now you're thinking," cried a more cheerful drag queen. "You need to do something not good, so then I have something on you." I glanced around at the people in the room. Ferrari was the only one looking at me. "What did you have in mind? Deal some drugs? Skim off the register?" Laughing, Ferrari said, "Oh, no. Then she was serious and in my face. "You have to kill someone. Then we will be all even." Lifting the front of my shirt, I pulled the gun I had taken from the body and aimed it at the drag mob boss. "I could kill someone in this room." "That's exactly what I want you to do," Ferrari hissed. Lowering the gun, I asked, "Wait, what? You want me to do what?" Sitting cross-legged on the desk now, Ferrari told me, "Simple. You will kill any one person in this room and walk out free and clear." "Depending on who I kill," I retorted. The slender body was beginning a yoga routine. It's impossible to factor in every variable. Looking around, there were familiar faces, not so familiar faces, and a face I wasn't done familiarizing myself with. It was extremely easy choosing who I would kill. It was rationalizing the follow-through I was having difficulty accomplishing. One of the goons leaned forward and whispered, "You have until the end of her routine to decide." None of them could look at me, even to plead. Could I say I wouldn't do it? Then I looked at the Commodore. He was smiling like he was smiling for me. Damn the world for seeing it, too. He was encouraging me. Holding the gun out, I shot at 3 different spots on the wall behind Ferrari. Opening one eye, she said, "What do you call that?" Holding the gun straight towards her, I responded, "Practice. I've never fired a gun before." And then I turned my body, aimed the gun, and shot the Commodore in the chest. Silently, Ferrari's head turned from the body to me, where she commented, "You were never expected." True to her word, the drag queen let me leave, with 2 provisions. My employment continued, and the gun I used stayed with me. When the door opened, it surprised me that it was still only sparsely light out. If I could hold tight to the shock until I got home, the impact can then begin its task of destroying me. Sadly, the night of wrong places had not finished with me. The hissing sounds I was hearing were coming from my car, or my car's tires. It was unbelievable, or totally believable, depending on how you're looking at it. It was just dawning on me that my tires had been too recently slashed when I heard the approach of heels on asphalt. Beginning to turn my head, a large hand clasped a rag over my mouth. Just able to think, really? This again? Everything went black. When I woke this time, there was sunlight coming in to the right. It helped with the blurriness. A cursory glance let me know that I was in FWM, Crandy's club. Blinking, 3 drag queens came into focus, sitting in the audience. I had been placed in a chair on the small stage, handcuffed. No lights, mind you. Morons. God, I forgot how allergic I am to mediocrity, I told Crandy's angels. "You're not here to talk, unicorn turd," barked Carlotta, who sported an afro wig which constantly looked as if 2 invisible badgers were fighting over it. "You are here to give answers," which, yes, is a type of talking, just in different contexts. "Shut up, Lotta," yelled Cupie, a waifish blonde. To me, she continued to yell, "Where is Crandy?" "I don't know," I spluttered, then switched to the truth. "I just worked the door." "All night long?" With the southern drawl, Kitty Bitty, stuck in Reba's fancy mode, pointed a finger with skin like paper. "And this?" Carlotta asked as she pulled my gun, might as well say my gun, out of her manufactured cleavage. Slipping from her fingers, the gun slid down her satin onesie, skimmed across her silky tights, landing on the stage where it promptly fired a bullet at Cupie, killing her. With the other 2 screaming at each other, then at the empty space between them, I snapped apart the fuzzy handcuffs and regained the gun. Trying to calm Kitty and Carlotta down, I also tried to give them advice, namely to run. Carlotta wiped her nose on some tissue that had appeared and leaned in to me. "You're so nice and kind of cute." Her words were cut off by the arrow shooting through her neck from behind. As Carlotta slumped to the floor, Kitty rose, open-mouthed, when an arrow went through the front side of her neck, beginning her slump to the floor. Seeing what fresh hell had come my way, I looked in the doorway to see Penny and Penny, owners of rival bar Trixie's Saloon. They wore matching camouflage coveralls and orange Crocs. In fact, despite the fact that they weren't twins, not even sisters, I had never seen them when they didn't look exactly alike. In tandem, they drew an arrow from their respective quivers and aimed towards me. "Where is Crandy?" "I have no idea," I kept lying, then truthing. "I'm just the doorman." The pennies looked at me, then the bodies, then each other, then back at me. In unison they said, "What was this, an after-party?" "It was a simple mistake. You did the other 2. I didn't even know what I was arguing." "We don't have time for this," they continued to annoyingly speak in unison. "You'll just have to come with us. Of course I do, I said as I stepped over bodies to meet up with the lesbians. At least this time I'm awake. As one penny walked out the door laughing, the other stayed to say no, and then hit me in the head with the end of her bow. Hello again, darkness, and are those pennies I smell? When my eyes opened, I saw the source of my need to pee. The fountain on the patio of Trixie's was going. The doors to the bar were propped open, and one of the pennies was sitting on the bench across from the one I was on. She looked concerned. I am so sorry about this. In the darkness, we didn't know who you were. The other penny popped around the corner from inside the bar. She was wearing yellow dishwashing gloves. Ferrari's employment positions are so diverse, she offered, then disappeared. We just need you to be honest with us, said this penny. Word is you're smart. You keep your ear to the ground and your squawk box shut. Then her tone changed as if she was discussing an embarrassing character flaw when she said, and you're honest. I wasn't completely honest earlier, I confess, with no intentions of being completely honest. But if I gave them something, it might help. Penny said, well, don't beat yourself up. Nobody's perfect. In the door again was other Penny, this time holding a bottle of Brasso and a dirty rag. This one keeps imitating everything I do. Do I let it get to me? She thought for a moment. A little more than you'd think. And off she went again. My latest kidnapper leaned forward and, with her elbows on her knees, a quizzical grin on her face. Remember when we opened Trixie's, I tried to headhunt you from Ferrari, based on your reputation alone? I thought the enticement of a syndicate life would do it, but you truly surprised me. That was forever ago, I told her. Long enough for many changes. But not in you, she answered. So I will believe whatever you tell me about what you know, or if you know nothing. That will be the end of it. Important meetings must gather, so please, all we ask is your honesty, which I know you will give. Indoor Penny appeared again, trying to wrangle 5 or 6 remote controls. You might save a life, she said, retrieving a dropped remote before walking away. It saddened me that this was not true. As a consolation, it seemed fortuitous that I could appear to try and save that life. Grandy was at the unicorn's horn. This Penny sat back and crossed her camouflaged legs. That Penny's head appeared at the doorway. It was after closing. Penny's eyes narrowed, while the other Penny moved fully into the doorway. Calculating how far I would go, I filled in details I knew would be unsatisfactory. I went upstairs to get a security tape before I left for home. Beginning to see the trouble, I said, the door of Ferrari's office was open. Before they shut it, I saw Crandy. Then there were raised voices, and I left. What was Crandy wearing? Inside Penny called out. Suddenly aware of outside Penny studying me, I mercifully remembered that part was a lie, but I had seen Crandy, and I had forgotten she was dead. Needing to fill in the blank, I remembered the body and said, Dina Lohan. Penny stood and was pacing barefoot. Her blonde Dorothy Hamill haircut flapped in the breeze. Why were you getting a security tape? My stomach sunk. Empty. I was empty in the lie tank. So I told the truth. You mean the Commodore? Penny asked at the door, holding a microphone. Interesting, said Near Penny. This is very interesting, but my advice is to move on. This is not your man. From the door, Penny argued, Don't be so hasty. I've known the Commodore longer. We were new in town together. Looking at me, she said, Interestingly, he hasn't changed either. Penny scoffed. Hasn't changed. He was a runner, then he held, then distribution, and then he moved into management. If I could count how many times for Ferrari he has... Other Penny yelled into the microphone, Stop! We have what we wanted from Cheeks. I'm sure he doesn't want to go into all of that. It's time to let him go. Penny turned to me. Why, of course. I just keep having to apologize. I got carried away. Fishing in her coveralls, she produced my keys. Your car is parked out front. New tires and all. If you're quick, you can catch fast food breakfast. Oh, and do come to the pool tournament. Dancing showboys and $100 grand prize. Looking blankly at her, I took my keys and left. Naturally, it would be beneficial to go home and get as much sleep as I could before work, except my curiosity at the revelation of competing drag mafia families in our gay bars was too much to resist. The natural course of action was to see if there were any other families. There were 3 other cars in the lot under the highway overpass. They were all close to the entrance, parking in a random spot as if I'd been there when the lot was full. I gathered my heretofore unthought thoughts as a man got out of the passenger side of one of the other cars. Even from behind, with a side glance to his sleeve, I knew it was the Commodore. I found myself smiling because I was right, relieved because I was right. He walked around the side of the building. A bulkier man got out of the driver's side of the same car as the Commodore had exited. Quickly, he crossed to the front doors. There were 6, and he chose the one second to the left, which opened for him. Waiting was agonizing because nothing happened. No cars passed overhead. If not for my shifting, it might all be a picture. All I needed was to hear them. That was enough for me. Very simple. Unfortunately, they remodeled the Prism Palace since I had been a couple of years ago. It boasts a larger dance floor, though, so there's less to search. As soon as I entered the club, I heard distant voices, indistinguishable echoes. Heated, but not arguing. Looking both ways, I closed my eyes to listen and chose right. There was a huge sense of a warehouse with people and rainbow lights spinning. As I scanned the floor, I surmised that this warehouse stored packets of drugs that had fallen during the previous night. Once upon a time, I would have been filling my pockets, but that was all cemented in the past. At the edge, I looked to the left. Beyond the dance floor were doors leading to the back rooms. Turning the corner, there were stairs that led to a balcony. Out of the shadows stepped a drag queen I didn't recognize. The black trench coat only enhanced the heavily beat face and short sculpted wig. My body backed towards the door because, although slowly, she was continuing to move towards me. In one moment, the heels of her suede boots began to make noise as she moved off the carpeted area. My slow pursuer brought out a small, bedazzled, snub-nosed pistol from her pocket. The other thing happened behind her now. At the top of the iron stairs, I saw a man's feet begin to descend. "Tell me one good reason I shouldn't shoot you for trespassing," asked the husky-voiced drag queen. The man was further down the stairs now, revealing his legs and jeans. "Because you aren't the actual landowner?" This stumped her, so I decided to try and diffuse things. "Look, don't laugh, but I came down to talk to the boys about possibly coming to work for them." As the man came closer to the bottom of the stairs, the black leather jacket was revealed, and I was still without a clue as to what was going to happen. Unexpectedly, the drag queen pulled a walkie-talkie out of her other pocket. "Someone wants to work for you. I think he's a defector." "A name would help, Bambo," came a feminine voice. Bambo stared at me. Knowing I should know my name right away, it was already suspicious, so I looked surprised and said, "Oh, me?" Bambo rolled her eyes and said, "No, the yellow tarantula that lives in my lady bits wants to start a career." The first name I could think of came out. "Barry." Sighing, she said into the talkie begrudgingly, "Barry." The man had sunk into the shadows. The radio was quiet for longer than made me comfortable, not to mention why the hell I said Barry's name. The radio came to life, and a more mature voice asked, "Unicorn Barry?" Nodding at her, Bambo then said, "That is an affirmative." After another pause, the sprite said, "Check him over good, then bring him back." Barry would probably have a gun, but I didn't want mine taken away. And in all honesty, I was already trying to figure out how to make a hasty retreat. When latex gloves made an appearance, I held my hands up, stopping Bambo, or so I thought. It was actually the bullet in the back. The drag queen fell backwards, revealing the Commodore. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I might just ask you the same thing," I countered. "Killing drag queens, no less." "You knew I was wearing Kevlar," he responded. "But that isn't what you meant, is it?" "Well then, let's get busy." Rapidly scanning our surroundings, I said in a shocked tone, "Well, I hardly think it's the time or place for that," as I casually removed my jacket. "No," the Commodore began, stopping because he was laughing. "I meant the business of getting you out of here." He wiped a laughing tear from his eye and said, "You need to leave." "No, you need to leave," I proclaimed defiantly. And then I changed my mind. I said, "No, actually, I do need to leave. I got what I came for." With that mysterious proclamation, I started towards the door. "Don't go to work tomorrow, or rather, tonight." His voice was calm, not suspicious, not suggestive. "Look, Goldfinger, us nobodies need to do actual work for a living." And after informing him so, I turned again to leave. "You aren't nothing," he said firmly, stopping me again. Looking back, I asked what he meant. "You are not nothing. Not to me," he said as he took a step forward. Moving closer, I studied his face. Such a familiar face, but no, it was him, all of him. This man was someone. Such feelings never came from strangers. With the wonderful thought that I was under no obligation to do anything, I said, "This is all lunacy," and walked back out into the land of the reality. Next time, on the conclusion of Love Knows Nothing. Turning the light of my phone off, I felt my way over to the far wall and waited. If waiting for gunshots was what I was waiting for, then I was done waiting very fast. A laugh escaped unexpectedly. The situation just became so absurd I gave up on trying to reason with the idea. Then the door downstairs abruptly opened. Someone down there was fighting. Enough light was present to allow me safe passage to the opening in the curtains swiftly. Bodies began to tumble up the stairs with yells and screams and a crunching sound from time to time. There were 3 who emerged. One was thrown to the floor quickly. Xylophone, the tranny, had thrown her. Tipsy Carmichael, recently unretired drag queen, held a light. "Where is she?" asked Xylophone, intriguing me. Weakly, a woman's voice said, "I don't know. We are looking for her too." Slipping brass knuckles on her hand, Xylophone took 3 good crunchy punches. Standing, she told the other drag queen, "Finish her, Tipsy." Come back in 2 weeks for part 2 of Love Knows Nothing, a charming thriller by Sheridan Delo.